Chapter 1. See you soon. It was a bright autumn day in rural Wisconsin. On an otherwise empty highway, a car makes its way across the land, speeding past forests of pine and birch, the leaves having turned into yellow, red, and orange, giving a warm look to a chilly morning. In the bright red truck sat Joshua Jackson, a 26-year-old man with a heavy heart. The car's radio sang rock music. It was music Joshua enjoyed, but he didn't feel the rhythm like he usually did. It didn't bring excitement to his body or mind. But it was better than having nothing to listen to. The sun made its way into Joshua's eyes. He picked up shades from the glove compartment and put them on. Joshua had gone up early in the morning. He had left his girlfriend, Samantha, when it was still dark, to make the drive out into the wild. The day before, he had called the man who owned the land, where his brother John had gone missing, and asked if he had permission to go out there to find him. The man, Jimmy, had been sympathetic, as he told Joshua that his father had just been found dead, attacked by a grizzly most likely, in those woods where Joshua's brother had gone missing. But that wasn't the case with John. Joshua was sure of that. As he drove the car down the empty road, he spotted a deer on a field of tall grass. A buck watching the car as it sped past. A beautiful creature, guarding its territory, looking for a fight or a female. Joshua came from a long line of hunters. He hadn't met his grandfather, but he had supposedly been an excellent hunter throughout his life. Joshua's father had shown both Joshua and his older brother John a myriad of pictures of his father, with moose, deer, bear, geese, and fox, anything that a man could hunt. In later pictures, Joshua's father was present, first as a boy, later as a teen with a gun himself. The last picture of grandfather was with Joshua's father sitting on top of his first moose bull, the rifle lying between the large antlers, grandfather with his white beard, round glasses, and huge smile, standing beside the mighty animal. "How long will you be gone?" Samantha had asked, as she caressed Joshua's chest while they counted down the minutes to 2 a.m. Neither of them had slept. The first few hours they had talked. Samantha had tried to understand why Joshua thought he would be able to find his older brother John, who had gone missing on a hunting trip with a friend, Hugh Trillbeck. "A few days at most," Joshua answered, looking at the ceiling, his voice steady and calm. Inside he felt nothing. No sadness. No anger. No fear. Just empty. He hadn't told Samantha that, even when she had asked him what he felt. "How are you going to find John in a few days?" Samantha had asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I'll bring a compass, I'll be fine," Joshua said. "It's not about that, Josh. How are you going to find John if the police and rangers haven't?" Joshua bit his lip. He tried to come up with an answer. He couldn't. And that was because he didn't know how he would find his brother. All he knew was that he had to try. Those last hours, Joshua and Samantha had just lain in bed together, still, silent, listening to the clock. She was a good woman, not like the run-of-the-mill party girls Joshua had dated in the past, despite his mother's disapproval. No, Samantha had her life in order, a nurse at a local hospital, dedicated to her patients. Coming from a stable home with 2 younger siblings, she knew her way around the kitchen and keeping the house she and Joshua lived in tidy and nice. Joshua's father would have loved her like a daughter, Joshua's mom had said after Samantha's first visit. Joshua didn't want Samantha to come along, even though she had asked to several times. She wasn't inexperienced in hiking or hunting. Joshua and John had brought her along many times before. Even though she herself hadn't picked up a rifle yet, she still enjoyed coming with them outdoors. Why she couldn't come, Joshua didn't know. He just didn't want her to. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I don't want you to come with me, Sam," Joshua had said, as he stood up by the bed, facing the window, looking out over their backyard. It was very dark, but the moon shone, and its pale light illuminated the lawnmower beside the large ash tree. It would be the last time the lawn would have to be mowed, as the nights had begun to reach freezing temperatures. It was silent for a moment. Joshua stood by the window. He heard shuffling from the bed, sound of feet gently touching the floor, walking over to him. A hug from behind. "I don't know either, but I'll trust you. You have some reason for not wanting me to come. I don't like it, but I'll respect your wish." Joshua looked down at those beautiful soft hands and took them into his. "I love you, Sam, but I have to do this." "Come home safe." Joshua turned around slowly and looked at his beautiful girlfriend, golden blonde hair falling over her shoulders, big beautiful blue eyes, heavier and darker than usual from lack of sleep. They embraced in a kiss. Joshua hugged her tightly. You are listening to Downriver Radio. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, 8 a.m., and the forecast for the day is sunny. The radio host shook Joshua out of his mind. He cleared his throat and tried to focus on the task at hand. There was a cabin Jimmy had told him about that he could stay in during his visit. It was well furnished, had running water and a fireplace. Jimmy's father apparently had built several of them on their lands, for he had lived for the hunt. So had Joshua's father. From an early age, he had brought Joshua and John with him out into the wilderness as often as he could. "To pass on the family tradition," he had said. But it was more than that. It had been a sacred father and son ritual. Sometimes they didn't even bring rifles. They would just walk about, explore the forest in all its detail. John and Joshua would climb the pines to get a better view, racing to the tops. John would win every time if he had wanted to, but he was better than that. He'd slow his pace to make it more exciting and more enjoyable for his 3 years younger brother. They'd try to catch frogs in the ponds they'd find, learn about different beetles and other bugs inhabiting the woods. Their father would show them what tracks the animals would leave behind, what kind of bird made that one particular sound. Those days Joshua remembered fondly. Joshua let go of the gas as he saw a sign by the road. "Welcome, explorer," it said. By the sign, a small road made its way into the deep forest. That's it. Joshua smiled. Jimmy's father had been a good man. He just knew it somehow, even though he had never met him before. The smaller road was bumpy, but in reasonable shape. Joshua's car had been through much worse, and so had he. Puddles of water splashing mud. A city boy, as the Jackson family called people living in the big cities, would have no doubt had a heart attack had their fancy cars been splashed in the same manner. He laughed. If only John had been there with him. They'd shared that laughter. This was their way of life. It was dirty, tough, and often unforgiving, but the freedom that it gave them was unmatched by anything. To roam the woods, looking for an animal to bring down, fighting against the elements and the instincts of said animal, was a deeply satisfying experience. Joshua smiled, but it broke. How quickly his father had been taken by Mother Nature. "No," Joshua said, shaking his head slowly as he parked his car, having reached the cabin finally. Turning off the ignition, just sitting there in the seat. It had been so unfair that his father had just been taken, and now his brother was lost. Joshua looked up into the rear view mirror and removed his shades. looked deep into his own green eyes. He was expressionless, his hunting cap on, some streaks of dark hair spilling from underneath it, Bristol stubble a few days old. He hadn't shaved since the police had declared his brother dead. Staring at himself for an eternity, lips beginning to quiver, brow wrinkling. Joshua turned away from the rear view and stepped out of the car, holding back the sadness pressing inside him. Big Brother John wasn't dead, and Joshua was going to find him.